You know that feeling when you take the first sip of a truly amazing cup of coffee? It's just perfect. But have you ever stopped to think about what's really going on in there? Behind that incredible aroma, there's this wild story. It's a story of science, of precision, and believe it or not, some seriously high-stakes risk. It's a journey that starts on a remote mountainside and ends, well, right here in your cup.
So it really all comes down to this one question. You see that word specialty thrown around all the time, right? On bags, on cafe menus, but what does it actually mean? I can tell you it's not just about a cool-looking cafe or that $5 price tag. The real answer is, well, it's surprisingly simple. And honestly, it changes everything about how you look at coffee.
Okay, you ready for this? The answer is a number. 80. That's it. To earn the title specialty, a coffee has to score over 80 points on a 100-point scale. Just think about that. It's like the finish line of this insane marathon that coffee producers all over the world are running every single day.
And look, this isn't some random number they just made up. It's a super rigorous global standard from the Specialty Coffee Association. It's this objective measure of quality. They're looking for a cup that's totally free of defects, one that's perfectly clean, sweet, and balanced. So the real question is, how on earth do you build a coffee that can actually clear that bar?
All right, let's start the quest. Our journey begins at the very beginning, at origin, on the farm. This is where the raw ingredients for all that amazing flavor are born. I want you to think of a coffee cherry as like a tiny little flavor pantry. And the whole goal, right at the start, is to stuff that pantry with as many complex, delicious ingredients as you possibly can.
And the biggest single factor in stocking that pantry? It's altitude. Seriously. Growing coffee way up high where the air is cooler, it basically acts like a slow cooker for the coffee cherry. This long, slow ripening period gives the plant so much more time to create and just pack the bean full of all these complex sugars and acids. And those are the building blocks for all the incredible flavors we're chasing. And you can see the results right here. It's a straight line, really. As you climb higher in altitude, the bean itself gets physically denser. And look what happens to the flavor profile. It just explodes with complexity. You go from something kind of simple and smooth down low to these mind-blowing, vibrant, floral and fruity notes in the coffee's grown way up in the mountains. And if you want the hard data, check this out. For every 300-meter climb, you get about a 10% increase in sucrose. That's sugar. I mean, that is a massive, massive jump. You're basically loading the bean with all this raw fuel that a roaster is going to turn into sweetness and complexity down the line.
Okay, so now we've got a coffee cherry that's just packed to the brim with potential. But here comes the first great filter: harvesting and processing. This is the moment where all that amazing potential, everything the farmer worked for, can either be perfectly preserved or completely lost, literally in an instant. First up, you have to decide how you're even going to get the fruit off the branch. You could do strip picking. It's fast, it's cheap, you just rip everything off at once. The problem? You get a mix of unripe, ripe, and overripe cherries all together, and that creates these awful defects that taste grassy or like vinegar. Yuck. The alternative is selective picking. This is where every single cherry is picked by hand only when it's perfectly ripe. Yeah, it costs a lot more, but it's not really a cost, it's an investment. It's risk management to make sure you get a perfectly clean batch that won't get dinged on that 100-point scale.
So, once the cherries are picked, you've got another huge decision to make: processing. And this is a really strategic choice. It's like you're at a fork in the road. Do you go for clarity? Do you want to taste the pure, unadulterated flavor of that specific farm? Or do you go for intensity? Do you want to actually add new, bold, fruity flavors to the bean? This one choice is going to completely define the final cup. Let's look at the first path, the wash process. This one is all about transparency. You take the fruit, the skin, all of it, and you wash it completely off the bean before it gets dried. By getting all that fruit out of the way, you're left with a cup that's super clean, really bright, with this crisp acidity. It's like you're tasting the bean's true soul, its origin, with nothing getting in the way. Now, the natural process is the total opposite. Here, you leave the bean inside the whole coffee cherry and dry them together. And as that fruit dries in the sun over a long time, all those sugars start to ferment and the bean just soaks it all up. What you get is this intense, fruity, almost wine-like flavor and a much heavier, syrupy body. Now, it's way riskier. A lot can go wrong, but if they nail it, the flavor payoff is just enormous.
So, we've made it through the farm. We now have this stable little green bean just full of potential. And now
Now we get to the magic. I'm talking about the alchemy of the roast. This is that high-heat, super high-stakes moment where all those raw ingredients we've been building up are finally transformed into the coffee that we all know and love.
Okay, so picture the inside of the roaster. The beans are tumbling. First you get the Maillard reaction. That's what creates those savory, nutty notes. It's the exact same chemical reaction that makes a steak crusty or toast toasty. At the same time, sugars start to caramelize, creating sweetness. Then things get dramatic. Right around 200 degrees Celsius, the water inside the bean turns to steam and crack. It literally cracks open. That's called first crack, and it's the signal that the most important part of the roast is about to begin.
That little window of time, everything after that first crack, is called development time. And trust me, this is where the roaster really earns their paycheck. They're walking this tightrope, fine-tuning the final flavor, trying to perfectly balance that bright acidity against the deep sweetness. We're talking a matter of seconds here. Go a few seconds too long or pull it a few seconds too short, and the whole batch is ruined. The pressure is on.
And look at how small that window really is. The development time, that critical phase, it's only about 15, maybe 25% of the total time in the roaster. But that tiny, tiny fraction of time has this ridiculously huge impact on the final taste. It is the thing that decides if your coffee is going to be beautifully balanced or it just tastes sour and kind of grassy.
Okay, let's take a breath. The coffee has survived the farm, the harvest, the processing, and the roast. It's made it this far. It's basically perfect. But the journey is not over yet. In fact, in these last few fragile moments, right before it hits your brewer, the coffee faces its most immediate and, frankly, its most destructive threats.
So think about it. After this entire incredible global journey, all of that quality, all of that hard work can be wiped out in one single moment. And that moment is grinding the coffee. Yep, the second you grind a coffee bean, you are exponentially increasing its surface area. I mean, you're creating thousands of tiny new surfaces. And all that new surface area kicks oxidation, that's oxygen literally attacking and destroying all those fragile, delicious flavor compounds, into hyperdrive. Flavor doesn't just start to fade, it absolutely plummets.
And this, right here, is why grinding your coffee just moments before you brew is not some, snobby coffee person thing. It is a straight-up chemical necessity. If you pre-grind your coffee, even just a few minutes ahead of time, you are instantly starting to erase all of that incredible work, all that investment that went into getting that bean to you.
Which brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this entire explainer. Quality in specialty coffee isn't additive. It's not like you can do a few things right and they just add up. No, it's multiplicative. Think about that. That means one mistake at any point in the chain, one bad decision in picking, one flawed roast, grinding too early, it doesn't just lower the score, it can multiply the whole thing by 0, bringing the final quality crashing right down. So now, when we look back at that 80-plus point score, it all starts to make sense, right? When a coffee is scored for having a clean cup, what does that mean? It means somebody did that obsessive, selective picking. When they talk about acidity and complexity, that was forged way up at high altitudes and then perfectly preserved by a skilled roaster. And that sweetness, that's the direct reward for picking only the ripest cherries. This whole long, incredibly fragile chain of quality, it's really a testament to the unbelievable skill and dedication of so many people all across the globe. So the next time you have a cup of coffee that just stops you in your tracks, maybe you'll taste a little bit more than just coffee. Maybe you'll taste the high altitude, the careful picking, the perfect roast, the entire amazing journey that brought it to you.